So, FNaF and horror, they go together like cereal and milk. For some reason though, people like to put in the milk before the cereal. Oh, that last part wasn't some deep metaphor representing the state of the fandom. That was just me disliking people who do that. What makes Five Nights at Freddy's so great? Is it the perfectly designed characters? The atmosphere that sucks you into a world of fright? Nah, it's the fact that you get yelled at by animals. That right there is horror, an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. It's a genre that's made its way to film starting all the way back in the 1890s, with the first one commonly being accepted as this 3-minute short titled The House of the Devil. Ever since then, plenty of movies have come and gone, evolving the idea with new subgenres within the genre, with one being known as analog horror. What is analog horror? Well, like any good scary idea, it takes the idea of something we find innocent enough and transforms it into something dark. The case for this is old VHS recordings. It became very popular in the early days of the internet thanks to a little known movie called The Blair Witch Project. While it's said the movie isn't technically an analog horror, it no doubt caused a chain of events for many when it released back in 1999. The movie presents itself as a legit found footage of real people who had gone missing after taking a trip to Burkittsville, Maryland to make a documentary about the mythical Blair Witch. The marketing behind this to make it look as real as possible, like a website with missing posters of the people in the movie, led it to become a smash hit in the box office with such a small budget. The many people watching would get inspired, eventually creating the path for many iconic web series. Hitting the fast forward button, eventually an analog horror based on the game Five Nights at Freddy's was thought of by fans of the series. While it was popularized by a certain YouTuber, I will not be naming or showing any footage of them. If you know, you know. That's as far as I'll go, since they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, since FNaF VHS outgrew the creator, leading to so many better people taking over. At first, everyone loved these. It wasn't hard to see why, as it was a new take on the horror series we've grown to love so much to either create its own lore to get invested in, or take iconic moments from the games to show it in a new light beyond the 8-bit screen that the official games commonly use to present its story. These have proven to be very successful, with new ones still being created to this day. But times have changed since they were introduced. Remember the people from 2019 who I just said loved it? Well, years later, those same people now dislike it. It was one thing to look at this and maybe watch one or two to conclude that this really isn't your thing. Heck, saying you flat out don't like it is perfectly fine too. However, people are now going as far to say that the VHS has ruined the FNaF community, brainwashing them into thinking that this is what the main series was always about and should be an absolute bloodbath with future titles just like analog horror. Is there any truth to these claims? If so, would that even be that bad of an idea? Well, that's what I'd like to discuss in this video. I'll be taking a look at the main problems people have with VHS. I'll also be sharing how I feel, if I agree or not, to which in the end, I'll present my final thoughts. Hopefully, by the end, you'll use the information learned from this video to form your own opinion, whether it's agreeing with me or not. Heck, feel free to even comment down below exactly what you think after watching this. If you end up enjoying, consider subscribing as I'm making all sorts of FNaF related content. Be sure to also give my Twitter a follow, and lastly, don't forget to join the Discord server to meet a bunch of amazing superstars. Anyways, please remember, what I'm presenting isn't my problems. Like I said, it's general ones I've been seeing get thrown around. I may agree, I may disagree. They're still not my issues with them. Problem 1. Too much blood/gore. I want to quickly get this out of the way. If you're one of those people who either likes or make TikToks where it's all like, FNaF is for kids, with footage from official games, then cutting to fan-made videos, could you just not? Thanks. FNaF VHS often get criticized for how it strays too far from the source material, with its overuse of blood. Are they right? Well, I'll be completely honest, from the 30 or so videos I've seen from plenty of different creators, meh. Now, what do I mean by meh? Alright, so of course some of these can get bloodier than others, but for the most part, it's either non-existent or the amount you'd usually see from the games and even the movie. I feel like people tend to forget the official series does have its bloodier moments. Off the top of my head is the game over screen, Sister Location's ending, and literally Springtrap's whole design within the suit. I'd argue it goes beyond that, since FNaF VHS usually boils down to quiet moment, loud sound, and visual horror. Sound familiar? It should. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, the videos people are saying ruin the fandom's perspective of what FNaF really is tend to forget this is sorta what FNaF is. Keyword, sorta. Calm down, I'm not saying these are completely one-to-one, but the similarities are there. You got the quiet office, loud sound like the music or Foxy's humming, and visual horrors like the rare screens. As I said, however, not completely one-to-one, as VHS can get pretty gruesome. It's very few and far between though, to where this weird obsession most people have to generalize FNaF VHS as nothing more than a bloodbath feels like a slap to the face of the creators behind them. Funny enough, if you go on YouTube and look up FNaF VHS and then filter them by most viewed, the 10 most popular by non-degenerates of the community, you'll see 7 of them either have none or have very little we've gotten used to seeing within official material. Heck, hypothetically, if we did include a certain channel that shall not be named on the list, the number still stays the same, with the majority being in line with the games in terms of blood. I can't say I don't understand where this mentality came from. I mean, this withered chica has been used countless times and is usually thought of when FNaF analog horror is brought up, and oh boy, this one in particular goes all in. Yeah, when these videos show gore, it goes all the way with it. Unfortunately, it leads to people clipping these specific moments and posting them everywhere, leading to others looking at them and automatically assume this is all FNaF analog horror has to offer. If it wasn't obvious, I'm gonna have to heavily disagree with this sentiment. Keep in mind, I watched a bunch of the ones that first pop up when looking it up, along with watching the most popular ones. Yes, gory ones do exist, but as I've presented, it's not as common as one would think. Since I've gone over the first problem, now would be a good time to bring up the next one. Throughout this segment, you might have been noticing some character designs not seen in the actual games. These are different takes based on the designs seen on FNaF Plus, which is a fan reimagining with its own takes on the characters off the original game. It's got its own can of worms. Anyways, where's the clean segue to problem 2, the fan designs. Before I start talking about any fan design, we should quickly go over the originals. The clear inspiration from Chuck E. Cheese cast helped create animatronics that both make sense to perform in front of kids, while also being terrifying to see roaming around at night. It honestly was so amazing that future titles were never able to recapture the perfect middle ground the first game had established, with designs either being unreasonable to be in front of anyone, let alone a child, to being way too childish for anyone to be afraid of. That's within the official games, however. If we move on to fan designs used for their videos, you got designs more inspired by Rockafire. You either love them, or you don't. These were created by Baddington within his series. Seeing as how I've seen plenty of it, were these able to grow on me? Unfortunately, no, which is a shame. I really do want to like this interpretation. The thought process behind them makes perfect sense as previously mentioned. Instead of being based off Chuck E. Cheese, you have stuff mom would tell you to stay the hell away from. I don't want to say they're trying too hard to be scary, like I've heard so many say. But like, it is pretty weird to think these are meant to be something performed in front of kids. I mean, it's not like there's never been an animatronic that was off-putting. There certainly has. However, notice how you don't see these guys around anymore? It's because, while they might have some fans, the majority, such as myself, think they look ugly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure in some way that was part of the charm that got carried over when making the vintage animatronics. However, that doesn't automatically equate to a good design. Trust me, I wish I could get behind the looks for them, as they're really well made. Sadly, they just don't do it for me. I'll be labeling these guys as not my thing. I fully understand if others enjoy it though. What if I told you there is a stylized version of the FNaF 1 gang that I found myself enjoying? Let me introduce you to Bizarre. They've been creating their own found footage since the start of 2023, with designs that I think are the perfect middle ground for both being reasonable to perform in front of kids, while also being terrifying in the right scenario. I found myself enjoying the small additions to these versions, like buttons on both Freddy and Bonnie, along with one of Chica's eyes being broken. Foxy, well, he's just as cool as ever. There is no need to do much with him. As for the cupcake, I don't even know if that's a cupcake anymore. Overall, these are wonderfully designed. Now, you may completely agree with me what I've said so far. You might think Baddington looks great while Bizarre looks bad, or you might think even both look terrible. It's subjective at the end of the day. It really starts becoming a problem when you try to start comparing every interpretation to each other, arguing what should be representing the game series. This leads me into the third part of the video. Problem 3. The fanbase's response. We've covered the problem within the videos, but that's only half of the situation. The main problem people have with the creation of FNaF VHS is the fact it gives other people the mentality that this is either what FNaF is about, thus getting upset whenever media doesn't line up with this expectation, or that this is what FNaF should be, presenting the idea that the series has been on a path of failure ever since Security Breach came out. There is something I am failing to mention in this situation I presented. The people who are actually saying this. Yeah, funny enough, while there most certainly are annoying people who have this belief, trying to come across one that isn't some dumb TikTok video clearly made for some clout is as hard as trying to recite the ABCs in one breath while holding two televisions. I don't know, you think of something hard. Anyways, it feels like I'm seeing more people complaining about these type of fans than the actual fans they're talking about. Are they even right though? Should FNaF take more of an analog horror direction? No, not really. I might as well bring up the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which you should check out my review for, specifically the table fort scene, since that's what people like to bring up when they say the series went soft and the VHS is the way to go. I have to disagree, since while this isn't scary, in a weird way this feels like FNaF. The fact Bonnie falls over and then gives a thumbs up indicating he's just fine is something I can only imagine this series doing. I'd honestly take it any day of the week than some generic scary film or game that just so happens to star the Fazbear crew. To take a route like that, it would honestly make FNaF feel like some safe horror franchise. Like, yeah, you got some pretty creepy characters plus some spooky stuff going on, but no heart to it. In a perfect world, I'd love for the series to be able to pull off horror really well while having a nonsensical charm to it, but in a situation of only picking one, I'd prefer if it were to feel like FNaF. That's only talking about the official series. I mean no hate to the fans making their own tapes. The reason VHS works so well in fact is because they don't overstay their welcome. The people who make it that are actually decent human beings, I have nothing but respect for, as they're great for what they're worth. They should be seen as fun alternatives to engage in rather than something the main series should be taking notes from. So, did FNaF VHS ruin the fandom? I don't think so. As I said, there are annoying people within the community, but that's to be expected. Plus, I believe the amount is smaller than we give credit for. The fandom aside, these fan projects are so impressive with all the work that goes into them. Whether you enjoy them or not, they at least deserve respect for creating a unique take on the game series. Now to answer the most important question of the video. Have I now been put on some list for admitting to enjoying FNaF VHS? Probably. Huh, that's not good.